First up on our agenda is the invocation and pledge of allegiance from some students at Airport High School. I'll turn that over to Mr. King.
I'd like to welcome two students from Airport High School tonight. Tonight we have Leanna Wiley's going to do the invocation and Coleman Garner's going to do the pledge of allegiance. But Leanna is a senior at Airport High School where she is ranked 4th in her class, which is in the top 1%. She has a GPA of 5.150 and she has recently passed both her AP Calculus and AP Psychology exams with a score of 4 out of a possible 5. She is in her 3rd year participating in honors course program and has been a member of the Tri Music Honor Society for 3 years. Leanna has the lead role playing the beautiful and headstrong Princess Jasmine in Airport High School's production of Aladdin Jr. She is one of 5 students and the only female who represented Airport at the South American Choral Directors Association Fall Conference in Charleston last weekend. Leanna's also participated in the Region Choir at Southern Wesleyan University, as well as the State Festival. She received a superior rating at the Solo and Ensemble Festival held recently at Walhalla High School. Leanna plans to attend college and obtain a degree in secondary mathematics and English language arts education. Coleman Garner is a senior at Airport where he is ranked in the top 5% of his class and has a GPA of 4.85. He volunteers with elderly community members by doing things from taking off trash to mowing lawns. He is a member of Dixie Baptist Church and has sung in their choir since he was 10. Coleman has been in honors course 3 years and the Lexington Gifted and Talent Growth Program for 2 years. He was one of 5 students representing Airport at the South American Choral Directors Association Fall Conference in Charleston. Coleman received a superior rating for a solo at Solo and Ensemble Festival. He has participated and competed at Region Choir and the State Festival. He is a member of the Beta Club and is the chapter secretary of the Airport Former Technology Student Association. He is the historian for Tri-M, the Music Honor Society. Coleman passed advanced placement exams for calculus and language and composition, earning him college credit. He plans to attend college and pursue a degree in mechanical engineering and a minor in vocal performances. I'd like to welcome Leanna Coleman.
Father God, you are the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings, for the successful outcomes of our school events and all our staff members. We ask that you bless them plentifully, and we continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our debates and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have put their trust and confidence in us. Please give us insight to lead with integrity that our decisions may reflect what is right and good. Keep us from pettiness and self-interest. Help us to make decisions for the good of all and keep us from self-interest. And Father, grant us the humility to always seek your will and all that we say and do. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is consent agenda. Without objection, consent agenda will stand approved. Next, we move to the public participation period.
I have one request that I'm going to share.
So at this time, I guess we would call them up. Do we have the update on communities and schools?
We've got those up here, yes.
Okay, let's let them go first, and then we'll get to Mr. Cloud.
Good day, good evening. How's everyone doing today? Thank you all for having us here. My name is Latasha Taste Walker, Director of Development for Communities and Schools. And I have before you our team and some representatives from our school. We wanted to share with you about our program. Dropout prevention is what we specialize in. And we have been here in the Midlands for 2 years providing services to schools in Richmond 1 and Lexington 2. We want to provide an update on some of the schools that we're collaborating with and also gain your support so that we can move further in the community.
Good evening. My name is Tanika Epps. I'm the CEO for Communities and Schools of the Midlands. I just want to give you just a little background on what it is that we do. So Communities and Schools is a dropout prevention agency. It's a national evidence-based program. We are one of 3 affiliates in South Carolina. Throughout Richland County and Lexington County, we currently serve 7 schools, 2 of those schools being in Lexington 2 School District. We serve at Herbert A. Wood Elementary, where we have Mr. Bryson coming to support us in that regard. And we also serve at Pine Ridge Middle School, where we have Ms. Susan Key, who's a site coordinator, coming to service. And what we do, we provide our model of integrated student support services by placing the site coordinator into the schools. That site coordinator is in that school every day to provide support for the school as a whole, but also for individual students and families. We case manage 10% of the school population. This past school year, we were able to provide support services, whether through the whole school support services that we provide or through case management. 910 students in Lexington 2 School District 2. We were able to case manage 98 of those students. And what we do is our 3-tier model of services that we provide for them. So tier 1 is where we provide whole school supports. That's any service that we offer to support the school in their efforts in meeting their goals, and every student has access to that. One of the things that we're doing this year, we have received an environmental grant from Dominion. And so what our schools are doing is a recycling challenge. Whether it be a school park, at Pine Ridge they are going to do a mural based off of collected bottle tops. So we're challenging all of our schools to be a part of that, but every student has an opportunity to be a part of that initiative. So again, that is one of our tier 1 services. Tier 2 and tier 3 are specific to the students that we case manage. So that 10% of students that we case manage, they're referred to us based off of early warning indicators in the areas of attendance, behavior, and then core academics in ESL and math. And this year we've also incorporated a social emotional component to that so that we can serve the whole child. So as we continue to do that, we want to be able to expand within the district to connect with more students and be able to offer that services across the board, because we look at not only the academic needs of the students that we serve, but also the non-academic needs of those students. Because we do understand that there are things that happen outside of the school day that directly affects what happens in the school day. And we just want to be that support for those students that may or may not have everything that they need so that they are able to continue to be successful throughout their academic careers. And what we try and do is a feeder pattern. So when we started at Herbert Wood, then we went into Pine Ridge Middle School, and of course the next step would be to go into the high school so that we're able to continue supporting those students throughout the course of their academic year, and also creating a bridge so once they graduate from school, they're able to be productive citizens within society. Now I can go on and on all day about the numbers and all the great things that we're doing, but I think you will get more out of it if you hear from those people that are directly impacted by it on a daily basis, whether it's working it or just being a part of that support system that we have. So with that, I would like for Mr. Bryson to come up and give you a little bit more about what we're doing in Herbert Wood. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James. Letter Friars, principal of Wood Elementary School. This program has had a big impact on our school, even including behavior. I remember when I first used the program, there was a student that was sitting in a class, and the student was a discipline problem. So I went down and I got the student and asked the student what was the problem. What the problem was a student had shoes that did not fit. The shoes that they were wearing in school did not fit on the student. I immediately took the student to communities in schools, and they were able to give this child a pair of shoes. Had another example. Had a student at one particular time, he didn't have a book bag, but everybody else he saw in school had a book bag. Went to communities in school, they were able to give him a book bag. Sometimes our students come to school, they don't have a coat and they can't afford a coat. Go to community school, they will supply them with a coat. Community school also works with our emotional programs in our school through our power class. They actually collaborate with them. They collaborate with the counselors during Christmas time to provide food for families. They help with case management for 50 students on the grade levels. They help teachers, administrators, and counselors to help support our kids both academically and with behavior and attendance. They also track attendance, so when they notice that a student is having attendance problems, they go into the classroom, they meet with those students, and they counsel those students on attendance. When a student becomes a behavioral problem, that person gets on their list, they track that person, and they try to prevent them from getting discipline referrals. They also work with, we have a reading program that we started inside our school along with Airport High School, where the students actually come over and we have identified students and they read with them. They are part of that group. They also help the tutor kids that are identified academically below. It's one of the greatest organizations that I've had to work with. They also have the best oyster roast in town. And are y'all still having that this year?
Yes. April 9, 2020.
Are there any questions?
Hi, my name is Susan Key. I'm the site coordinator of Pine Ridge Middle School. This is my second year there. You know, we can talk about the programs and everything, and I think that one of the biggest things that I feel that I have the pleasure of doing that helps impact the students is the relationship that I build with them. We are an extension of what the teachers do in the school. We don't do what they do, we're just an extension. And so briefly, I will tell you what we're doing at Pine Ridge this year. The Tier 1 services that we're focusing on this year is the environmental piece with plastic awareness, and we're doing a whole school where it's going into the language art department, to define arts, to science, and the kids are having a contest with the grade level who can collect the most model caps. And then in spring, we will create a big mural and educate the students about the dangers and the issues about plastic in the environment. We provide basic needs and resources that I talked about, hygiene, all those other things. And one of the biggest whole school things that we're doing, we've done this is the second year, is we are implementing a chess club program. Last year we had about 30 kids in the program. This year we have over 95 students in the program. And this year we're with the grants, we were able to get our kids, we will be competing throughout the state. And one of our students last year was able to do it so well that he competed in Greenville, and he is now ranked, and when you guys know how to play chess, he is ranked 1250. He started off 450. And he was a child that was autistic, did not have very strong social skills, and through chess, we pulled him in, and now he belongs to part of the group that he's respected and looked up to. And he's at airport, and we're hoping to bring chess into airport because the kids thrive through that program. Like I said at the beginning, the relationship that I have with the kids at work is what makes it work, is what helps us connect with the kids and help us meet the needs of the kids and families. So the teachers and the school admins can do what they do best. Okay, thank you.
We hope that you can see the testament before you that the Communities in Schools Dropout Prevention Program, we're in schools, we're here to help the teachers. We want to be more flourishingly involved in the school district and schools that we know have attendance issues, behavior, and academic issues. We have the resources and the relationships so that the teachers and administrator can feel that they can serve better on the education level. We also wanted to recognize one of our board members who's heavily involved in Lexington District 2, Ms. Kathy Jones-Storts. She sits on our board, and we're always looking for ways to expand inside of the community along with schools and District 2. So again, thank you for having us here, and we definitely look forward to keeping in touch with you. I presented some materials inside of those folders, which includes our impact report for the amount of students that we served in Lexington. We definitely like to keep in contact with you as we grow and expand in schools and open doors to serve more communities and schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
How are the students, how are they selected? You have a total of 95. Is this voluntary, or?
So all of our students are referred to us. They can be referred by anybody within the school, whether it's the teacher, a school administrator, another student, or a student can self-refer, or a parent can refer them. They're referred for any of those items that we mentioned earlier, which is the academics, the attendance, the behavior, or social emotional. But they can be referred by anybody. And what we do is a needs assessment on those students when they first come in, when they're first referred to, excuse me. We do that needs assessment to determine whether or not it's a one-time need, and we just may need to provide them with some type of referral service, or that one-time support, or whether it's an ongoing need and we need to add them to our caseload.
You're currently into Wood and Kirkwood
In Pine Ridge, yes.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, again, thank you all for the opportunity to present for y'all.
Thank you. Next on public participation, we have Ms. Gail McLeod.
Good evening, Dr. Kennedy, Mr. Bingham, Mr. Boyd, everybody. You thought when I retired last year ago, you're done with me, but here I am again. For those who don't know me, I am a product of Lexington 2. I have 3 generations of my family graduated from DC High School. I spent my entire teaching career in Lexington 2, with the last about 25 years at Saluda River Academy for the Arts, retiring in 2017-18. With me this evening, I asked Ms. Tanya Fryer to be with us, who retired from Saluda River also at the end of the 2017-18 year. And she spent 12 years as principal and 5 years as the assistant principal. And then after spending 17 years at Saluda River and 26 total in Lexington 2, she still maintains a great interest in the school and the district. There's a lot of pride in our district, from sports championships, grants received, scholarships awarded, as well as the extensive program of building and renovating. You can be particularly proud of Saluda River Academy for the Arts during this time. Why do we say that? We all know how challenging it is to move a house, from one house to another, packing up your belongings. After being in one location for 62 years, during the 2017-2018 school year, Saluda River had to move to a new location, the Claude A. Taylor Elementary, while our original facility could be fully renovated and upgraded. You can be very proud because the Saluda River faculty, staff, parents, and community members pulled it off with style and grace. The school did an amazing job of serving children. It was evident by the school's report card compiled during that year of transition, released last fall. In that report card, Saluda River earned a score of 58, which fell into the good category. A score of 61 was needed for excellent. Goodness, how much? And did that in a transition year at a temporary location. Be proud of these children and their constituents. Recently, the State Department of Education named schools from the 2017-2018 school year to receive the Palmetto Silver Award, and Saluda River Academy for the Arts was one of them. That's always a distinction and a cause for celebration, but so much more for it occurring during that year of transition. That year was extremely challenging for everyone, not just because of moving, but also that was the year the district underwent the advanced ed accreditation process. Also, some of our children had very unique circumstances academically and emotionally. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a music teacher, so I saw every child in that school, and we did have some very unique situations that year. In spite of all of these complexities, those of us at Saluda River that we faced that year, we crushed it. Worked hard, and with the Silver Award. I will always be grateful for the opportunity I had to serve the school during those challenging times. And the reason the school was able to achieve in such an outstanding way. We did this while maintaining a quality arts program to build confidence, creativity, college and career readiness skills within the school and outside of the community. And then the academic achievement, all that happened because of team effort. We did our best to make sure the children were cared for. Number one was our children. Throughout Ms. Pryor's tenure at Cedar River, she often said, these are everybody's children. And it took everyone working together as a team for them, especially that year. There was an interview noted in Forbes magazine with Walt Bettinger, the CEO of Charles Schwab, worth noting. Mr. Bettinger described a lesson he learned in college during the business strategy final exam. He needed to ace the test so he could graduate with a 4.0. He spent hours reviewing. On the day of the exam, his professor handed out one sheet of paper and asked the class to turn it over. It was blank. He explained, I've taught you everything I can teach you about business in the last 10 weeks, but the most important question is this. What's the name of the lady who cleans this building? Bettinger was stunned. It was the only test he ever failed, and he got a B in the class. He said her name was Dottie, and I didn't know Dottie. I'd seen her, but I'd never taken the time to ask her name. I've tried to know every Dottie I've worked with ever since. The experience taught him, you should never lose sight of people who do the real work. Every member of the school community that year, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, the teachers, administration, parents, community members are to be commended. And at this time, if you'll allow me, I would like for Ms. Pryor to share a token of appreciation she'd like to share with you.
Well, we know that Oprah is certainly the philanthropist and recently donated $13 million for a grand total of $25 million to Morehouse College. Now, Mr. LeBlanc, my heart certainly moves me to want to donate to Saluda River in kind, but my pocketbook does not allow me to do so. So, to that regard, I will provide lunch for Saluda River staff one day next week to be determined in recognition of the 17-18 Palmetto Silver Award, including the newest members of the Bobcat family. I realize, I know firsthand budgets can be tight. I only wish that I had a way to include other Bobcat team members who have since then left Saluda River in that treat, allowing an opportunity to reconnect with the school community, see the beautiful renovated building. So here tonight are some of the representatives of the 17-18 school year, and we have to thank them for their service to children. Again, Saluda River Academy for the Arts and Lexington 2 will forever be special places to us, because once a Bobcat, always a Bobcat. And on a personal note, if I can ever do anything for the school or district, I stand ready to do so and share my expertise and institutional knowledge, because I will always be a champion for children.
Thank you very much.
Next up is report of honors and accomplishments of students and staff. Dr. James.
Yes, sir. Stephanie, if you would bring your folks forward. That's the only time they glance. The State Board of Education, working with the Division and the Department of Education, established the Palmetto Gold and Silver Awards to recognize and reward schools for academic achievement and for closing the achievement gap. The awards were established for schools obtaining high levels of absolute performance, for schools attaining high rates of growth, for schools of making substantial progress in closing the achievement gap between disaggregated groups. The award program must base improved performance on longitudinal match data and may include criteria like student attendance, teacher attendance, graduation rates, and other factors of performance. We would like to recognize Busby Creative Arts Academy for receiving a Palmetto Silver Award. I, along with the board, think this is extremely fantastic, because it wasn't too awful long ago that we were wondering about, when are we going to turn that corner? And now you're recognized as one of the best in the state. Congratulations. I'd also like to announce to the board and to the audience, because my understanding from just a little while ago it's going to come out, Midlands Tech has agreed to a partnership with Lexington 2, whereby our career area students will now be able to exempt coursework at Midlands Tech. So we've moved to just another higher level. Joni, Bernie, all your folks over there, thank you very much. And to all you guys that are sitting out there, principals, this is National Principals Month. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Before we leave honors and accomplishments, obviously you know that one of our board members is National School Board's president. And so we hosted a week or so ago the National School Boards Association here to visit Lexington too. So I thought perhaps you'd like to use this opportunity to give us an update on what were their thoughts of Lexington too after the visit.
Yeah, thank you, and I especially thank the schools that we visited. I wish I could have taken them to each and every one of your schools, but we only had one day, and we actually ran so far behind at the Innovation Center that I kind of understood they held classes at BC for third block, and everybody thought they were on lockdown, and maybe Casey Police got called. So welcome National School Board Association. But anyway, we had a really great day. We started out the day by reading to students in our schools, because I think most of you know I was an English teacher, and that's a primary thing for me is reading to children. I loved hearing that the airport students were doing that through the community and schools. But each one of my board members coming from different parts of the country brought a book that had to do with their state, and they ahead of time knew that they were going to go read to a class. Well, the real surprise in that is Mr. Sims and his staff actually had their teachers ready, and the students used that, and the teachers had a learning opportunity, and they actually had decorated their rooms and had learned a little bit about each state of the person that was coming to read to them. So it was a real give and take on both sides, and my board was just amazed with all the students and all the great questions that they got. I think probably one of my favorite, Mr. Sims, was a student asked my fellow board member from Kansas if they have cell phones in Kansas. I don't know what he heard about Kansas. He was real worried they might have cell phones in Kansas. But they really had a good time, and they've also told me you might be getting some packages from places like California and other things. He said, they're telling me to tell you it's gifts and not, something you'd be worried about opening. He said, please open them and give them to those classes. They really were impressed with what we're doing with the Innovation Center. I mean, that was just a home run for our district. I think we all wondered when we were building this, we all had in our minds what we wanted that program to be like. And for it to have played out on a national stage and have people across the nation going back to talk to their communities about what we're doing here in Lexington too, I think is a really, really big deal. And then we wound up the day at Brooklyn Casey with the cheerleaders, cheering and the band playing and all of that. Mr. John, we had intentionally avoided airport because you were having homecoming, and I just kind of didn't think that'd be a good day to show up late at your school and all that. So, but it was a really big day at BC, and they got to learn about the different programs there, and we wound up with a board meeting. Poor Dr. James had to stick around a couple extra hours because we were running late, but he ran a session, a team building session for us. And then he gave a presentation on our district, and he was really open and frank and really telling them, some of our challenges and some of the good things we do. And they were so impressed with everything we've got going on here at Lexington too. So first of all, I thank you as my Lexington 2 family for having supported me in that endeavor. And my school board just came out, and they were so impressed with all of you for being so involved with our schools. And so I just thank each and every one of you from me, but also I just really thank you on behalf of our students, because it was great for our students to get some national exposure. And they're going to be featured in a video and all that kind of stuff at a national convention. So I was super excited that I am going to be bringing some treats to some of those schools that I bombarded for several hours. So thank you.
Thank you for that. We move on to unfinished business, and we don't have any, so we get to go to new business. First up is consideration of out-of-state travel for principal of Fulmer at the American Middle Level Education Institute.
Yes, sir. Ms. Carrero is planning to travel there. That is out of state. It will use some 100 money, and it does require the board's approval. I recommend the approval of that trip.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the out-of-state travel request as presented by administration, as recommended by administration.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Keith. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is consideration of the sound system for Wood Elementary School.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, we heard from some of you that you felt that we need to take a look at the sound system at Wood Elementary, and we've done that. Mr. McPherson has gone out there and has gotten bids from, I think, 3 different companies, at least 3 different companies, perhaps 4, to look at upgrading that system. And we'd like to ask that you award the contract to Gaddis Pro Audio Incorporated in the amount of $9,980.15.
Motion to approve the administration recommendation awarding the contract for a sound system for Wood Elementary to Gaddis Pro Audio in the amount of $9,980.15.
All right, we have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Keith. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of use of capital funds for future land purchases in Performing Arts Center.
Being that this is in Mrs. Rawls' area, she's going to present this and will do a much better job than me.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, Dr. James, we are asking for permission to use funds that are transferred from the fund balance left over every year. At the end of the year, we hold 10%, and everything over the 10% requirement, we transfer half of that into CPIF Technology Fund. We're looking to use that fund, those dollars, to make land purchases, and that is outside of what board policy allows us to do without your approval. And according to policy DIB, I will need a supermajority vote to get this approved. So we are looking to use those funds for land purchases, and the administration makes a recommendation that we allow to do so.
Do we have a specific purchase we're talking about or a specific amount we're trying to?
What we're looking at, Mr. Bingham, and all the members of the board, Don has gone out, as you know, and looked at several different pieces of property. Right now, what we're doing is preparing for the fact that he thinks there's some property out there that the board might have interest in, but because of the moving of the money and taking the time and all, and the fact that it takes 5 votes rather than 4 to do this, we want to get on the front end of it in as far as contractual matters in executive session, any contracts and all that he will explain that. But it's CPIF money, and those of you that have been on the board for a long time know we divide our fund balance, and we had a good year last year. We put part of that money into technology, and anything outside of that, like land purchases, which the district has done in the past, has to have a vote of the board. So, no, sir, we can't give you an exact amount right now. We're just saying once we give you that, we would like to use that resource available to us.
I think I'm trying to get a handle on what kind of a motion this would be, because obviously there's a policy in place, so we can't just summarily change the policy. We can vote to move something or vote for a project to move the money, but
I think we need to know that you all would support us in using those funds. And obviously, whenever we have a specific amount, we would come back to you for approval at that time with a specific amount. But before we can move forward, we need to know that we can use these funds. Does that make sense?
Most of it would be for the Performing Arts Center. And we we've explained some things that we're trying to do there, and we just need to have the way cleared for us to begin
You
that
would
process.
want, what I'm hearing is you would want sort of an affirmation as opposed to some official motion to move money. You want an affirmation from the board that we're okay for using those funds.
CPI as a
But we will-
funding source.
But we will be approving specifically
Yes.
the movement of the money at the time it
Yes, sir.
comes.
Correct.
That is correct.
A specific site and a specific dollar amount.
Okay?
And I obviously wouldn't oppose that, you know, what your plan is. But my question is, Dr. James or Mr. Bingham, would it be just as effective if you kind of understood that the board is willing to consider that, but we waited until we had a contract in hand, and then when we make the motion to accept the contract, that we say, we make a motion to accept the contract to purchase X piece of property and use the funds from blah, 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 would that also effectuate the same thing you're trying to do? Or is there a situation where you've got to move the money over there first to be able to access it?
I do not need to move the money. I think the idea is we need to know that we have the support of the board before we move forward, because if we don't have the support of the board, we need to look in a different direction.
We've got, Mr. Eisenhower has 2 pieces of property, and obviously that's contractual matters, and you'll be hearing from him and the district's attorney. But the thing that we need to know from the financial standpoint is that is the most realistic pot of money for us to use, and since it takes board approval, it's not quite the same as if we had general fund money or you had bond money. It's money that is going to require 5 board members to say, yes, that's an effective use of it. So we aren't planning to move money, and we can't tell you exact dollar amount. We will tell you about some contractual issues, but the request is the decision as to whether or not the board would approve, given a specific amount, given a specific piece of property, using CPIF funds as a way of purchasing those properties, particularly for the performing arts.
One of the things I will say also is I expressed to the board when I first came, and when our former CFO was here, that my fear would be to end these bond referendum projects and have a bunch of money sitting in the bank. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is we want to make sure that we spend what money was voted on by the taxpayers and whatever funds are available to give this community what I think you all feel that they deserve. And that's basically what we're looking at doing, is we're just trying to make sure that we have a pot of money that's available to finish the projects that we've talked about and that we have going, and for the future of this district. So the way we've got it on here is that we're recommending that you give us approval to use capital funds for the new Performing Arts Center and for future land purchases that would be approved by the board at the time.
Okay. It's just that the policy's the policy, so we got to vote on something if we want to move it. Which, that's what you're saying, you'll bring back to the board to vote to move the money. You're just right now need the affirmation that we don't have a problem with that concept.
That's
right.
right.
Correct.
Correct.
Should there be a declaration with this amendment acknowledging that it is that, and any purchase would have to come to the board prior to the purchase?
I think that's the whole point. How
I
do you
don't
make
think
that
it's-
into a motion? That's what I'm struggling with, so I'm going to.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board approve the potential use of capital funds for the new Performing Arts Center and for future land purchases contingent upon final approval of the contract by the board.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any further questions?
I didn't write it down, did you?
I wrote my own down, but that sounded better. So I like the word contingent.
She's the lawyer, that's,
Yes, that helps.
Any further questions? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of surveying of Granby, Pear, Taylor, and Pineview.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, once again, we have talked about the need to survey these properties because we do not have current survey. And if the board decides that they want to sell any of these properties at some point in time, we would obviously need to get it appraised. But this is the first step in preparation of having the board decide what they want to do with these and other properties. So we're asking that you approve awarding the contract to Carolina Surveying Services Incorporated, and I'm giving you the amounts of $2,500 for a Pineview survey, $2,500 for Taylor, $3,200 for Pear, and $3,000 for Granby, which is a total of $11,200. And we solicited several surveyors in the area, especially the ones that we have used in the past here in Bond referendum, and this was our low bidder.
I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation of awarding the contract to Carolina Surveying Services in the amount of $2,500 for Pineview, $2,500 for Taylor, $3,200 for Pear, $3,000 for Granby, for a total of $11,200.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second, by Ms. Custer. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, consideration of remote access control for lobby doors at Pine Ridge, Busby, and Northside.
Once again, this is a continuation of the access control system that we put in at all of our schools. One of the things that we have found is that it's very difficult sometimes for the person that has the ability to push the button to allow people to go through from the office into the main hallway. If they're dealing with a parent or someone, and they have someone else that comes up that needs to go through, they're talking to somebody else, they have to either interrupt that discussion and basically go push the button. We have a remote that we would like to put in the hands of the other person in the office area and allow them the ability to basically buzz someone through into the main office if they have permission to proceed from that point. So we'd like to ask that the administration approve, or the board approve, awarding the contract to A3 Communications in the amount of $10,132.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for awarding the contract to A3 Communication in the amount of $10,132.
Second? Second. Second by Mr. Key. Any discussion?
What's the range of the remote? How far away can you activate, you know?
I think working on our offices, but I don't know if it would go beyond that or not.
I was just thinking if somebody I wouldn't want anybody that would be a distance away to be able to remotely say, I'll get the door. And a range of being able to.
Some of you that have it, do you know what the range is?
It's probably 20 to 30 foot, as long as you're not outside of glass and steel and all that, so inside the room.
Okay. I mean, I just wouldn't think it would be some distance away.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is consideration of Airport High School 700 wing HVAC ductboard replacement.
Mr. Chair, when we talked about installing turf in the fitness and wellness area, we indicated at the time when you approved it, you've actually already approved doing that, and I told you that we would probably be using the contingency from either airport or Fort. So I've coupled that into this request, but when we were when we tore out the ceilings in the airport high school 700 wing, it became very obvious that the supply lines for the HVAC system is a ductboard, fiber ductboard, which is not a good commercial application. I feel that while we've got those ceilings torn out, we really need to address that. And one goal that I've had since I've come here is I don't want to leave a problem for someone else to deal with it. And if we cover that back up, I'm afraid we're going to leave a problem for someone else to deal with down the road, because those fibers become friable, and although they've not been proven to cause any harm, it's just still one of those things that I don't know that you want children exposed to. So what I'm asking the board to do is that you give us the ability I'd like for you to approve the use of contingency funds for indoor turf and metal duct installation at the 700 wing at Airport High School. And we are going to have some money left over. It's the same contractor that did Fulmer. We're going to have about $150,000 left over there. And I'd like to use that money for these two last projects at Airport High School.
Motion to approve the administration's recommendation to approve the use of contingency fund for the indoor turf and metal duct work at Airport High School using the contingency money left over from Fulmer. Second.
A motion by Ms. Kessler, a second by Ms. Branham. Any discussion?
Did you mention a dollar amount?
They don't know.
Well, you've already approved the turf installation, and I think that was $65,000. And the estimate on installation of metal would be less than $100,000, but we have to get it designed before we can get bids.
Okay.
Any other questions? Being none, have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of softball dugout upgrades at Airport High School.
Yes, sir. This again is, I guess, dotting the I and crossing the T's on the last few projects that we have with Bond and CPIF. The dugouts at Airport High School are not very tall. And we're talking about on the softball field. And they are in need of a new roof. So we wanted to basically, and we put into our CPIF budget, which you've already approved, a total of $80,000 to address the dugouts and ADA seating at this field. So we'd like to ask that you approve awarding a not-to-exceed contract to Contract Construction Incorporated in the amount of $80,000 to upgrade and rebuild the dugouts at Airport High School softball field.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation to award a not-to-exceed contract construction in the amount of $80,000 for the softball dugouts upgrades at Airport High School.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yes. Fencing, $80,000 seems high to me for that project. I just want a clear picture. Are you going to replace all the fencing or just the backstop?
We're going to replace the fencing in front of the dugouts and also on the backstop. We'll take the bleachers, pour concrete underneath the bleachers. We'll replace the pad, the entire dugouts, fix some drainage issues there.
And you mentioned ADA seating going there?
We have existing bleachers that are not ADA, so the first step is get a concrete pad underneath there, then cut in ADA seating, or potentially replace those bleachers with new bleachers. That's a decision we need to get into it when we reach that point. What's more feasible for this district?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next is consideration and request for overnight and out-of-state student travel.
Mr. Chairman, I have a special motion, and I wrote it down, but I would like to make a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for our airport JROTC students with affirmation of their program and its positive impact on our students and community, and admiration of their many awards and successes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Key. Any discussion?
I would just like to make sure somebody passes that message on that this board is extremely proud of our airport JROTC students and their efforts. I mean, that's phenomenal every year when they come back, and we're going to love them even if they don't win, but we'd like to get another first place in something. So just let them know that we're really proud of them.
Any other questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we move to administrative divisional reports. Dr. James.
Yes, sir. Report cards came out a few weeks ago, and we talked to some of the board members last year when the change came about in the report card. You know, the report cards had been on pause years for a good long while. Districts had not got report cards, schools had not received report cards. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about is to give you an idea as to what goes into the report card and the scores of the report card, and then talk to you a little bit about some of ours. Basically, the state says it's a summary of the profile of a South Carolina graduate. All of this is online if you want to go into depth about. As you know, as you've seen, there are ratings for each school. Districts do not receive a rating. They range from unsatisfactory to excellent, and it's based on the criteria that ensures that students are meeting the profile of a South Carolina graduate. And those ratings correspond to a numerical point based on the number of points that a school can receive, 100 total, and the amount that they receive matches the cut score. When this came out in 2017, 2018, it was designed as a perfect bell curve almost. The design was based on 15% of the schools would be excellent, 20% would be good, 35% would be average, 20% would be below average, and 10% would be unsatisfactory. That was purely by design. That's what it had to be. You weren't competing with yourself. You were competing with your position on the bell curve. This year, the cut scores are 0 to 33 is an unsatisfactory school, 34 to 41 is a below average, 42 to 52 is average, 53 to 60 is good, 61 to 100 is excellent. It's a good thing, and to board members that have been through this before, it's typically there's been a lot of change. What we have been told, and I say that with, I won't guarantee, but the fact that these cut scores, Morgan and the test coordinators have been told that these cut scores will remain in place for several years. So those are the numbers that we're looking at right now. Should be the same cut scores for next year. So the two numbers that we really want to pay close attention to is 42 and 53 for our schools. The way you earn the points in elementary and middle school, you can get 35 points based on ELA writing and reading 3 through 8, math 3 through 8. So basically, like we've talked about in our workshop, like we talked about as a board on numerous occasions, the ability to read well, write well, and do mathematics are absolutely crucial in being able to put points up. For the high school, the same thing exists. Algebra 1 end of course, the percentage of kids making a C or higher. English 1 exam, the percentage of kids making a C or higher, make up those 25 points. So for all grade levels, elementary through high school, reading, writing, and mathematics. Basic, our basic, what we do every day, is where the majority of the points lie. Now, we've been told that the exit exam in English is going to move to English 2. So that will be a little bit of a change, but it will still be 25 points, Algebra 1 and English 2. Student growth progress is 35 points in elementary and middle, and somewhat complex. And I've got Morgan here, a lot of elementary principals, middle school principals in Dixon, so we'll get too deep in the weeds about this. But all students, if you look at every student that's tested, the measures in academic gains in ELA and math compared to their peer groups is worth half of that 35 points. The lowest 20% of students, they count as the other half. The issue with those 20% is they're counted in both groups. So the lowest 20% of your children, the children who are performing at the lowest levels, in essence count twice. They count in the all student number and they count in growth of lowest 20%. So one of the strategies in elementary and middle is we can't teach to the middle, we can't teach to the top. We've got to go back and get that lowest 20% regardless of where they come in. We know that in a lot of our schools, we're getting kids that probably aren't ready for first grade, they certainly aren't ready for third grade, but we can't ride on that anymore, because if you're looking at the report card, 20% of those kids are going to count twice in that report card for student progress. Preparing for success is based on science or social studies scores. SC Pass is in grades 4, 6, and 8. SC Pass Social Studies is grades 5 and 7. So you'll note that no grade in elementary and middle tests both science and social studies. So it gives us an opportunity to focus on one or the other according to the grade that the child is in. For the high school, it's the end of course exam for biology and U.S. history. And again, that's an important part to look at. While that's only 10 points, it is 10 points. And in addition to that, what we've got to do is look at our scheduling for those kids, because theoretically, you could have a 9th grader taking Algebra 1 end of course exam, English 1 end of course exam, and Biology 1 end of course exam. So making certain that we keep up with kids on an individual basis and making certain of how we schedule out their schedule so that we don't end up creating test fatigue is going to be real important to our future growth in report cards. How far do you have to be away for a remote kind of work? English language proficiency. We get 10 points at all levels. And basically, that's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. How non-English speaking students are progressing in learning English. That's an issue that probably most people throughout the nation are struggling with. Because what happens, and Mr. Bean was talking to the board officers the other day, it's not just the idea of can a child speak words in English? Can you read a paragraph in English? Or maybe can you write some sentences? It's actually, can you think in English so you're comprehending, reading, writing, understanding what the teacher is trying to talk to you about? The research says it takes 5 years for a child to get to the point where they can listen, speak, read, and write fluently, with all comprehension and work well within the school. So we've got some ideas about a common kind of curriculum. In the past, we've been like most other folks. What we're doing is you've got teachers in there, they're doing the best they can to help kids learn to recognize sight words, kids learn to read, kids learn to speak. The issue is with the actual thinking in a foreign language. that's difficult. I can't imagine it, but we've got some folks that are doing well, and we got some folks that are going to do much better. School quality at the elementary and middle school, it's 10 points. At the high school, it's 5 points. It's based on a survey. It's based on a survey given to kids. I got a little bit of an issue for that. They don't really care what my issue is, but the bottom line is the survey points come from the number of kids who take the survey. So if you got all your kids taking the survey, that's worth part of the points. But then the responses. Part of my issue is with some of the responses. This is one of the questions that's there. Which response best describes how you see yourself as a student? To me, that says, what's my opinion? How do I see me? So there isn't a wrong answer. If Bill James was answering this in the 8th grade, my right answer would have been C. For some people that are really, really smart, like some of these principals we got sitting up here and my 7 board members, you would have chosen A. You participate in activities because you like getting good grades. We both would have been wrong. The correct answer is I enjoy learning with my peers and from my teachers. That's where the 10 points come from. We don't have a lot of control over anything past getting the kids in the room to take the exam. And again, I'd argue that if you say, how do I see me? There isn't a wrong answer, but Advanced Ed says there is. College or career ready? I think I skipped reason 2. Thank you. We've got numerous ways that a child can become college and career ready, and this is one that can do well at the high school level. That's 25 points. We've got this down to the point where we now have a dashboard on Power School for every kid, but you could keep it as easily with a spreadsheet or my yellow legal pad. A kid only has to qualify in one of these areas. A composite score of 20 or more on the ACT, and they're college or career ready. A score of 10-20 on the SAT, a 3 or higher on one advanced placement exam, 6 hours in a dual credit course with a C or higher, becoming a K completer and earning a national or state credential. Silver, gold, or platinum on what is the win now, used to be the old work keys exam. Earn a score of 31 on the ASVAB or successfully complete a state-approved work-based learning exit evaluation from the board. So one of the things as kids move into their 9GR, the year they begin the 9th grade, we can start looking at these because they only have to get one in order to be college. Graduation rate, we're going to talk about that specifically. But basically, it's an indicator. You get 25 points. It says, how's the school in graduating all students in 4 years? That's everybody that comes through the door, regardless of whether or not it's kids who are speaking English already, whether or not it's kids that are self-contained special ed, regardless of if a kid leaves and you can't find them, regardless if the kid goes to DJJ, all of those things, the graduation rate is, how many kids are you graduating out of everybody in 4 years? One of the report cards that I want to talk to you about is the fact that about the Casey report card, and Andrew's here to talk to you a little bit about it. And primarily, the reason I want to talk about it is because it made the newspaper, and while the newspaper said a lot of things, and they're probably accurate, I didn't bother to read the whole article, but what it doesn't include is the fact that we're in the 3rd year of Casey's existence. Casey is 90% poverty. That's the highest poverty of any elementary school in Lexington County. But if you dig a little deeper in all those facts that weren't in the report card, the kindergarten students at Casey ready for 1st grade is equal to the district average, the average of all elementary schools in our district. First grade being on track for second grade exceeds the district. In Casey, language arts kids is 45.1%, the district average is 42.8%. In Casey, first grade being on track for second grade in math is 63.9%, and for the district is 40.4%. And second grade being on track for third grade, ELA is 32.7 in Casey, the district is 35. Math is 34.7 and the district is 35, which is essentially statistically the same. If you looked at overall third grade math scores from 18 to 19, in 2018, the third grade math scores at Casey was 39.2. In 2019, they were 44.2, so you had a 5-point increase. ELA in 2018 was 21.6. ELA in 2019 was 29.7, so you had an 8% increase in third grade. The fifth grade in 2018, the math was 15.6 for the number of percentage of kids that exceed expectations. In 2019, it was 19% or 4% growth. ELA was 11.9. In 2019, evidently the ELA folks are doing pretty good. It's 21.2 or 10% increase on that. So what I want to make sure that the board understands and the general public, when you're talking about our elementary folks and you're looking at elementary report cards, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade are going to be your testing grades and there's things there. But if we're going to turn elementary schools around and in turn around middle schools and ultimately do well in high school, we've got to start at the lowest level. And for me, the idea that kindergartners being ready for first grade, particularly high poverty kindergartners being ready for first grade, is crucial in this entire district. And first graders being on track after having been with us for a year, and third graders testing out higher is vitally important. I asked Andrew to come because he's got some plans that he and his staff and he's worked with Dr. Bingham, he's worked with Dr. Brooks, a whole group of folks in the district, parents. Andrew's got some things about Casey Elementary that I just think the board needs to know. So with that, Andrew, if you got just a minute, that's a little.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. James, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Casey Elementary School tonight and the progress we're making towards the future. Dr. James hit on a few items already, but I want to point out some plans we have going forward. First, we identified our areas of focus. As Dr. James pointed out in the state report card, one of the areas is student growth. That section is determined by 3rd through 5th grade students taking the SC Ready Math and ELA test. On that test, students can score exceeds expectations, meets expectations, approaches expectations, or does not meet. The way a student is determined there to have met appropriate growth is how they've grown over a 2-year trend. When we look at the 2-year trend, the area or subgroup of students that we identify as most needing attention is our students who are scoring approaching expectations. That being, the reason is that those students that scored that score in 17-18 and 18-19 dropped back to does not meet. So that's our area, one of our areas of focus. Those students are now going to have an adult mentor at our school to help them focus on their academics, their emotional and social growth. We are going to be working at a variety of factors that might have impacted that, such as attendance, such as behavior expectations, and speaking with the teacher regularly, speaking with the student regularly, speaking with the parent regularly to make sure we're on track to have progress that we would like to see. And as I was speaking about that, we're talking about a change in culture, an improvement in culture in our students, empowering our students to feel as leaders in our school and taking ownership and responsibility for their learning and putting the effort in to be successful. We all know that that's where it starts. Education, at the end of the day, is about relationships. Every education research person will tell you that. One of my favorite, Harry Wong, said, if you show me you care, I'll show you what I know. And I personally agree with that. We have to form our relationships with our students and encourage them to show that we're behind them. Obviously, we have to have sound instruction. We have to make decisions based on evidence, but we have to form strong relationships with students. With that in mind, one of the things at Casey that we are looking at this year is we have become, technical difficulties. We've become a leader in me school. Being a leader in me school is based around the 7 effective habits of people written by Dr. Covey many years ago. There are over 4,000 schools in the United States of America that are using this program. It has helped schools like the students of Casey, many all over the place. We have a coach that we work with directly, Dana Pennick. She is a former principal from the Myrtle Beach area who has been through this process. And we believe a full commitment to our 7 habits and integrating them into our students' lives, our adults' lives at Casey, and all of our daily activities will help our students to take that ownership, to take that motivation, to become the leaders of their own learning, along with the assistance of the adults providing them sound instruction. Along with that, obviously, we have to have an instructional shift. We are moving toward, or we are continuing to focus on and being more laser focused on our grade level common formative assessments. These assessments begin at units, and we tell our teachers where our students are when they come in the door. And as we learn that, we can make instructional-based decisions for small group instruction that's differentiated for the needs of our students. Then as we go through a unit, we will prepare and look at these on a weekly basis in our achievement team, the PLC process. And then at the end of the unit, have a post-assessment to assess where our students are. Have them master the concepts in question, the essential learning standards we're looking at, and reteach the areas that need to be retaught. Also, this school year, we moved to a departmentalized model in our 4th and 5th grade classrooms. The reason is really twofold. It allows our teachers to be more laser focused. We have one teacher who can focus on ELA and social studies, while we also have another teacher who can focus on math and science. Also, we find for our students, when they're regulating their emotions, when they get upset, if they're called down in class, even for a minor reason, sometimes they have a difficult time getting past that. A lot of times they have a difficult time getting past that. The hope being, the belief being, the research being that a student going to a new classroom with a new teacher in a new environment can continue the instructional day without being as focused on that. So when we focus on that, we also felt that 4th and 5th grade was appropriate developmentally for that change. As our younger grades, that would be a little bit much for our younger students to try and handle. Again, focusing back on Leader and Me, a part of that is a part of our behavior expectations management. We want our students to be in the classroom, we want them to follow our district behavior guides, and we want them to learn. And we are working towards that. We have seen improvement in that. As of right now, we are on track as this moment to have over 200 less discipline referrals in our school this school year. And we are continuing to constantly monitor that to prove and continue doing that. Another piece of that is we are having informational parent meetings every 2 weeks. We had our last one last Friday at our media center. I made my meaniest grits. We had scrambled eggs and pancakes, and we talked about our Leader and Me initiatives, our instructional initiatives, and our behavioral initiatives, along with important dates coming up in Casey. A part of Leader and Me is that it takes a village. It takes all of us to help our students be successful. We want our parents to be well informed about what they can do to help their student at home. All of this goes back again to developing those meaningful and positive relationships with our students. And by doing so, we believe that the research shows we can and will have substantial impact on their growth socially, emotionally, and academically. Finally, this is going to be, as I mentioned just a second ago, a team effort. This is a full Casey staff, faculty, teachers, administrators, support staff, cafeteria, all of our folks. This is an effort that we all are involved in. So we will have regular, honest conversations where we're monitoring the success of these initiatives and how they're being put in place and how they're impacting our student behavior, how they're impacting our instruction, how we're impacting the student and teacher attendance, and again, ultimately, how we are impacting our students becoming leaders in their own learning and how they can continue to grow. We always start all of our communications in our building with Casey Elementary School family. And it's going to take a family approach, and that's what we have. Because at Casey, we do believe we are Casey and that we can do this together as a group. With that being said, I'll be happy to entertain any questions anybody might have. Yes, ma'am.
What can we as a board do to assist you and your school in your efforts?
Dr. James, Dr. Bingham, and Dr. Brooks have been amazing. I've had principals from other districts, quite honestly, reach out to me about the newspaper article Dr. James referenced. And they all have said things like, keep your head up, things of that nature. And, I've said to all of those folks in my district have been fully supportive as we begin this process. And so I believe that, and everybody's been so supportive that we feel that. We feel that at Casey, and we are just going to continue to do what we believe is best for kids. And I know that our school board and the administration at the district office supports us.
So do you need us to come read your kids? Do you want us to volunteer? Do you want us to be mentors? Do you need more teachers? I mean, what do you need to be successful? Because I think nobody's going to sit here and beat up any single one of our schools because we all know what can seriously happen. But we love our students at Casey, and we love our staff and our administration at Casey. And we want to make sure that we as a board are doing everything that we can do, and that you don't feel as if the board or administrative, the district office is just sitting in judgment or anything like that. We truly care. We believe in your teachers. We believe in you and the rest of your staff, and all the way to your cafeteria workers and your janitorial staff. But I think would also like to be helpers in that process and be part of that solution, because potentially, based on the way I see the numbers game played out in the state report cards, you could potentially be one of the largest winners in future years because you have so much room for growth. So I just say, obviously, let's don't wait.
We're not waiting. We're in the process of doing it, and we're also evaluating as we're going. I'd love to have anybody who'd like to come and read to our students. That would be fantastic. I'd love to have you come to our parent information. We try to have 25 parents is where we start off with that, to try and keep it small and intimate. And so if any of the board would like to come, like I said, most mornings when we do it, I make my meanies grits. They're pretty good if you want to come and have them and talk and hear about what we're doing. And I think our parents would love to see our school board there to see how supportive they're being.
Mr. Brown, if I could say anything, you've hit on what I think would help the staff at Casey more than anything, to see the board. Reading to kids is great and it's fun, but I think if they knew the board, you said it well in saying not sitting in judgment. I wouldn't have said that, but I'm glad you did. I think when you kind of get punched in the mouth, whether it's fair or unfair, it's nice to know you got somebody in your corner. So at any point in time, the board member could drop by and encourage somebody. I think it could go a long way. I'm sorry, Ms. Wood, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I'm going to go back to what Ms. Brown asked you, of course. And I'm not only asking you, I'm going to ask every principal in the entire district. If y'all need more help, if you need more teachers, if you need more assistants, more staff, whatever you need, if you or all the other principals in here will tell us, then it's our job to make sure that you get it, because that's what we got elected for, and that's what we want to do, and we want to see you move on. And I love what you said. The whole presentation was fantastic. And one of my favorite sayings that we use with my staff at work, and of course I'm in the medical field, is, if you tell me, I forget. If you teach me, I remember. But if you involve me, I learn. By Ben Franklin. And I think that's what we have got to do as a district. So don't be afraid to say, I need another teacher. I need another teacher assistant. I need another coach. Because that's what we want to do. We know we're the best.
Yes,
and we've got to give y'all what you need.
Yes, ma'am. And we did add teachers for this school year. That is very helpful. And interventionists and coaches. We have added staff to our school, and we're excited about that. And we have 28 new teachers. We're excited about that. It takes a change. Like I said, it is a team effort. I can't help but fall back on the only experiences I have in life that are teams, and that's athletics. And I was an athlete and a coach. And at the end of the day, at Casey Elementary School, we're going to look at ourselves and we're going to ask ourselves what's best for kids. And we are working towards that. And you know, it's very similar to a head coach that's had a tough go. You know, I told somebody the other day I've had a new appreciation for Coach Muschamp. He's had a tough go, but he stuck to his guns, and he stuck to what he believed in, and his staff and his players bought in, and they went in and got the biggest upset in Carolina
You're
history.
exactly right. It was a good day to be a Gamecock last Saturday. And we are aware as a board, you know, and we do this as we're working. Got to take care of the front line.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's
As a former offensive lineman, I agree.
That's right. And our teachers and our assistants and our support staff, you know, we got to take care of them. And if you involve and you do it as a team, it works.
And we're working as a team. We really are. You know, that's something. You know, my mom was a public education teacher for 32 years, and along my career, at every stop I've been in, every position I've been in, the number one thing she taught me was that it is a team effort, and it is about relationships. You know, I quoted Harry Wong because I didn't think Jean Drozda had as much clout with me, but she has a heck of a lot of clout with me. And that was what she taught me from day one, and that's what we're doing. We're going to build relationships and do what's best for children. And as Coach Muschamp said recently, that will always end up in good results.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to thank you for presenting tonight. You know, it really helps us see, you know, the vision and where you're going, so we can support that and be behind you. And I would also like to ask if we could have other schools do the same thing, because, you know, we need to hear from everybody else as well, because everybody, you know, has different things going on and different needs. So.
And also, I believe we handed you a paper there about some of the things that Dr. James was bringing up about our younger grades and the practice and the progress they're making. They also mentioned that with the University of South Carolina Education College, we've formed a partnership with them to be a professional development school. This means we have student interns from Carolina coming in. We already had about 15 come in. In total, we're going to have about 50. That just is more hands on deck. That's more people helping out. Dr. Compton Lilly is going to be our faculty liaison at the University of South Carolina. She is renowned for her work. Our focus in that is engagement and differentiation for our students and how it can help progress and achievement. So it's just another partnership that we're looking into. I appreciate it.
May I have my clicker back?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Casey Elementary is a big school, and it doesn't turn quickly, but if you look at the early grades, it is turning in a very positive direction. And you're right, the numbers game says that Casey will do well. One of the things that has come up and talked about is graduation rate, and graduation rate is one of those things that sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense. Those of you that have been board members for a long time will remember at one point in time report cards had 4-year graduation rates and 5-year graduation rates, and I mean there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So I'd like to try to go through this because that's been one of the conversations that swirled around the community in the district. And again, we've got our principals here. Basically, out of the accountability manual, and it's online, you can pull this up at the State Department. If you have a population of English language learners, you can get 25 points in graduation rate. Without that population, you can get 30. Points are earned based on the graduation rate for a cohort. Basically, it's an on-time graduation rate. An on-time graduation rate means 4 years from the time you enter into the 9th grade, regardless. It doesn't matter if you came from somewhere else, you came from a foreign country, you came from another school district, if you have issues, 4 years, everybody coming into the system. student is initially added to the 4-year graduation cohort. You'll hear our folks talk about 9GR. If the student is enrolled on the 45th day of his first year of high school. So if a student quits school or something strange goes on in the 8th grade, they don't count in our 9GR. But if you're enrolled in a school on the 45th day in the 9th grade, you have 4 years from that point to be a high school graduate. If you don't complete the high school with a diploma within 4 years, you're not counted as a graduate for this purpose. Students coming out of the cohort, the only way that a student doesn't count against the high school graduation rate, you can be removed because you have documented transfer to another diploma granting high school. If one of our kids moves to Lexington and we get documentation, they come off our cohort and go to Lexington. The problem is part of the issue we deal with is a big transient community. The kids who aren't transient, our high schools don't have much problem with. But if a kid moves, I think Mr. Moore was telling me they had a kid that tracked to Kentucky or Tennessee, then they went to maybe Texas, and then finally somebody found them in Kentucky. Our folks are using social media, friends, everything else trying to find kids. But if you don't have documentation, even if they're in some other school, they still count against us. A kid who immigrates to another country, if we have a kid that comes from Honduras, Mexico, Guatemala, and those are countries that we get a lot, and goes back, if we have documentation, and that's very difficult to get. If a kid is transferred to a prison or a juvenile facility, this past year we had seven that went to DJJ. But for the attorneys in the room, part of it is adjudication. I foolishly thought that adjudication meant they got sent to DJJ, somebody had made a decision. Well, that's not how the judge interprets it, and that's not how the State Department interprets it. Going to DJJ doesn't necessarily mean that it's finished and they're guilty. So our kids, when they went to DJJ, they were automatically enrolled in the GED program, and they automatically counted against our high schools. And our principals had zero control over that, because what put them in DJJ was outside of the school. A judge sentenced them to DJJ, and DJJ put them in the GED program, non-graduate, Fort BC3 at Airport. If a child dies during that 4 years, and we can produce a death certificate, that can be removed. Graduation rates are calculated based on the number of kids who earn a regular high school diploma in 4 years divided by the total number of students in the cohort. And like I told you, there are very few ways you can take a kid out of that cohort or denominator. Transferring to a diploma granting high school, immigration that you can prove, transfer to a juvenile facility after adjudication or death are the only ways that you move them out of that cohort. Again, same thing. Students are added to the cohort when they transfer into the high school from an in-state or out-of-state institution. Easy ones are like a child transfers from Lexington High School to BC High School or Airport High School. Part of the problem is when you have a child that comes in from Honduras, Guatemala, some of those places, a child doesn't speak English at all, doesn't have past 4th grade education, but they're age appropriate for high school. We're required to put them in high school. The probability that our high schools, regardless of how well they do, will graduate them in 4 years is very slim, just to be absolutely honest. Currently, students who meet the state diploma requirements as a result of attending summer school are calculated in the on-time graduation rate. We expect that to end this next year because the report cards are due to be published September the 1st, so there's not enough turnaround time. So that'll take another group of kids out of our overall cohort. the reality of it is, and I've talked to the principal, we've talked a lot about this, and elementary and middle school. We aren't making excuses or saying we've got issues other than anybody else, but I do think it's fair that everybody understands what's going on. And if we have kids who graduate in summer school, they're still a graduate. The issue's going to be, they won't be reported on that report card because of the time frame. If you look at our historical data for the last 10 years, in 2009, 67.4% of the kids coming through Lexington 2 graduated with a high school diploma. In 2010, it dropped down to 63. 2011 went back to 65.3. You'll notice there's a black line right there. In 2012, two things happened. One of those things was the State Department of Education allowed the transfer of a student from public high school to adult ed to be removed from the cohort. So they didn't count against you in the numerator or the denominator. In addition to that, this board implemented an expulsion extension program that allowed a child to take one high school credit in either math or English while they were expelled in an effort to keep those children on track. So if you look from 2012 to 2017 and 2015, 16, and 17, we had some really good years where we were above the state and national average, but quite honestly, if you remember back, we were bragging profusely about those adult ed graduations and those kids 17 to 25 that were walking across that stage. We had a good number of kids who life happened to, and we had a safety net for them, and we didn't devalue, and the state of South Carolina didn't devalue what they did. It counted in our graduation rate. We talked last year for the members of the board that had been on the board for once that was taken away, we knew our graduation rate was going to drop. It dropped 10 percentage points, and you could look and find those kids that are the same kids that walked across that stage last year in adult ed. And Greg's got a child right now. She's 17 years old. She left Brooklyn Casey High School to go to adult ed. She'll count against Brooklyn Casey High School this year. If she counts against Brooklyn Casey 15 times, I still think it's the right thing. She has a child. She was trying to come to school with the child. Went to adult ed in the GED program, doing exceptionally well. The money that the board put into the early childhood program, she has child care for that child. She won't count as a graduate for us, but she will do exceptionally well. When she gets that GED, she can go to Harvard if she likes. If you look at this year, we're 76.3 across the district. That's the highest of any years up to 2014. So while we did drop, and while the paper did talk about our graduation rate, if you look, I don't know before 2009, I don't have any reason to think that it was significantly higher than the middle 60s then, but if you look up until 2014, our graduation rate today, even dropping and even taking out the kids that are going to adult ed, is still higher than it's been in a long time within our historical data. If you look at the graduation rate based on subgroups, folks breaking out our kids, non-economically disadvantaged kids, average kids. Our district graduates 94.8% of those kids. We graduate 94.8 at BC, we graduate 94.8 at Airport, and that's 0.6 more than the state of South Carolina. Our economically disadvantaged kids, we're graduating 76.2. And that's almost a direct reflection of our poverty rate in this district. And most folks will tell you, and if you look now at the report cards throughout the state, there is a correlation between the poverty rate in a district and the report card. Our disabled students, we aren't doing as well as the state. The state is doing 61.3%, our district is at 44.4%. And that's, while that's important, it's also somewhat misleading, because at Airport High School you had 20 self-contained kids in BC5. We have children, and we have one that passed away last year that had been in this district until 21 years old that had feeding tubes, wheelchairs, and those sorts of things. Those children aren't going to graduate in a 4-year time span. But disabled can be speech-only kids. So when you look at 61%, that's any kid with an IEP. What I tell you to look at is the number of self-contained kids in this district and in the graduation cohort. Hispanic kids were graduating 71.3, and that's a little below the state average. African-American kids were at 72.9, and that's a little bit below the state average. Overall, the group of getting a diploma, our special ed children, and I'm not pointing at Lisa, because our special ed folks do a really good job with what they've got going on, but that is a huge hurdle to overcome, and there are fewer and fewer of those teachers, and there's more and more self-contained kids. So that, everybody needs to understand that works into the overall configuration.
What you're saying is that basically we have a higher percentage of those severely disabled children as a total population than what state does.
Yes, sir. In this district, we're 17% special ed. Wow. Which is high.
And what's the state average?
Lisa.
You know what, I apologize, I do not know. I just know that we have stayed steady at 17 for quite some time. But our numbers are growing.
But even at that, we may have a higher percentage of severely disabled as compared to just speech.
And we're seeing that at all ages.
I mean,
More
the district, I mean, the state average of 61% is taking all kids with an IEP anywhere in the state, but they could be just with speech, and we have some of those too. But if the state average, if only 3% of the state average is severely disabled, and we are 10% severely disabled, that's a huge factor in why those scores come out the way they do. It's not a reflection of the teaching that's in the schools, it's a reflection of the population of the kids we have.
Bill, the kids from Blue Rivers County.
Well, we're going to talk about RTF. I apologize. This is, I've shocked my staff, because I spent 2 Saturdays ago working on PowerPoint. They weren't real sure that I could even spell PowerPoint, so I'm sure that right there is, that right there is my fault. But for the board, if you will look at the information sheet that we sent you, the first thing, if you look at our total 9GR, the total number of kids that were entered into the 9th grade, up on the top right, is 588 kids. We had 25 kids in the district that were self-contained special ed kids. If you take those out, we had 7 kids that went to DJJ that our principals in the schools had absolutely no control over. We had 25 kids that went to the GED program, and I think this board has made that a top priority, and it's a touching thing to watch those kids. We had 6 kids that were found to be in a foreign country after the state closed the window, so they nicely told us that they would count against us even though we were found. But if you look at the numbers of kids, and there's 63 in that cohort, 63 kids make this much difference in this district. 25 self-contained special ed, 7 going to DJJ, 25 getting the GED, and 6 that are beyond some self-imposed deadline. Our graduation rate is 85.5%. That's not a bad number to look at, and if you look at the 2 high schools, they're relatively close. Jake, in terms of your question, if you look at the populations in Lexington too, our poverty rate is 76%. Our ESOL is, I may have that messed up. Our ESOL is 12.2%. We have 17% special ed. We have 7 kids who are homeless or McKinney-Vento, and that's a big number because we have very economical living. And I told the board officers the other night, with the closing of the Nights Inn, we had 3 school buses that went in there. That's 3 school buses of kids, and I guarantee you, our folks are going to record, but most of them we will not find. We had 88 expulsions, and that counts against the graduation rate because, by and large, a kid loses a year. When they're expelled, they don't go. As far as RTF, Jake, we have 148 kids that come and go. It's not that you have 148 over there now, they may have 12, 14, or 15. But last year, 148 kids went through there, and they go back somewhere. Sometimes they go back to a school, sometimes they just go back somewhere. We're responsible for being able to keep up with those kids, and our principal being able to produce a document that says this is where they are. In addition to that, we had 63 kids in foster care last year. So what I would tell the board, and I've asked the principals from the high schools to both talk about some of the things that go on there. Yes, the graduation rate as it is measured by the state of South Carolina in Lexington 2 for 2019 is 76.3. Is that accurate? Yes, it is. Are there some issues that go along with that? I think so, and I don't think they're excuses. I think that you have a very small cohort, and if 63 kids can change the graduation rate almost 10 percentage points, that in and of itself has some control over it, particularly when it's kids that you can't do anything about. Mr. Don could have gone to DJJ and found his 4 DJJ kids every day. He knew exactly where they were, but they were in a GED program, had no way of doing anything about it. Mr. Morton couldn't have kept them in a diploma track if he'd gone over there every day. It's a GED program. So that's basically the backside of a look behind the curtain of what goes on in the graduation rate. Again, I've asked the 2 principals, Dave, Greg, if y'all want to talk to the board a little bit about some of the issues that are going on there, we'd appreciate it, then we'll be glad.
We'll come up together, we'll provide support, right, Greg?
Yeah. Safety in numbers.
That's right. Sit down meeting, dealing with the same issues, and it's really not a whole lot anybody in this room. There's just the reality of some of the students that we're having to take in to being a public school. I've got a student who enrolled about a week ago who's never been in school in her entire life. She's 15 years old. She's immigrated to the U.S. in our district, and we have to enroll that child. We're going to do everything in our power to do what's best, but we're obviously not going to graduate that child with a regular high school diploma in 4 years. Over the last 4 years, what we've seen is we've seen an increase in that population coming in. We enroll the students. My ESOL program, they do a great job. You know, number one, just getting a lot of those foreign students comfortable in the environment and all that. But a lot of them are 16, 17 years old with no high school credits, haven't been in school since the 6th grade. And we do a great job acclimating them to our community. And the reality is, after about a year or so, they end up going to work. They turn 17, 18, 19 years old, and which is what's best for their families. A lot of Dr. James, I think, hit on a lot of these issues that we fight. We've got a folder right now tracking all of our students in this year's graduation rate, and I got my staff, we meet monthly to look how we can try to find some of these kids. Like I said, we're using social media, because if we can get some documentation that a student's either gone back to their home country or they're in another district, we'll call schools in that area to try to see if they're in there, to try to take these numbers down. But the other thing that we do, I feel my staff does a great job with, and we're not going to change because we're going to do what's best for a kid. We just met with this child today who's going to adult ed, but that is what's in that student's best interest, and that student will actually be successful over there, have a chance to earn. They're getting ready to turn 18, and they need over 15 credits to graduate. These are students that are coming to us. They're not Lexington 2 products, and that's one thing we've seen too. When we get students from other districts come in, we have to take them, and we're going to do what's best for those students. And our adult ed program is one of the best probably in the state, and has produced a lot of productive citizens. And we feel like we're doing the community a better favor than just trying to make that kid and not give them that opportunity. Now that we know that's going to count against us, I'm not ever going to make that decision, what's best for that child. And today, guidance, myself, and my API, we all sat down and said, this child needs, adult ed is what's best for that student. And we know that's going to be a hit on our graduation rate at some point, but, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to do what's best for the kids.
I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, one of the guiding principles that I've always believed in is you make decisions about what's best for children first. The report card's important, I recognize that. But the other day in the hallway, I had a kid hug me because I told him I'm sending him to adult ed. He needs to go. It was best for him, it was the best move for him, and I won't tell you his story. But it's not an option to get hugged by an 18-year-old guy with dreadlocks. That happened the other day. Sending him to the place he needed to be, and he knew that. Tears in his eyes. Greg and I have the same philosophy on how we track these students. There are really two things that are going to move your grad rate, honestly. You got to run, well, three things. You got to run a good school. You got to run a good school. And one of the biggest challenges we face at airport is our attendance rate. So we've been working that one hard since last year. At this point in the year, this year, we have 175 students who have never missed a day of school. The report card 2 years ago, our chronic absenteeism rate was 85%. Last year, the report that we're talking about here is 25. As I look at attendance today, based on where we were last year, we're 4% higher. We're working attendance, we got to get them there. That's huge. That's baseline effort. How do you run a school? It's huge. If you get a school, you get a class on time, you got a chance to win. The other two things we've got to do exceptionally well, and we'll move your report. I've been doing this a long time, and grad rate is moved by two things. It's moved by how well you keep records, and it's moved by good credit recovery efforts, credit recovery programs. In our school last year, we lost 160 students between last year and this year. We're tracking them. You got to find out where they went. Greg talked about that. You have to find out where they went. So you can take them off your denominator. We gained 160 kids. I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of them will not finish in 4 years because they came to us 2-3 years behind. But if they're less than 17, they got to start school. We will not get them through in 4 years. So you do all you can. I mean, there's only so much you can do in credit recovery, but credit recovery and good record keeping will move your grad rate. Setting a good program in place will move your grad rate. For us, it's attendance. That's our primary challenge at Portland. So it's what we're working every day.
And I think some of the data that we've looked at in both airport and BC, if you look at our SAT scores over the last 3 years, both schools have solidly increased those. So the kids that we have, we're doing, you know, to me, all our kids, we're providing a lot of great opportunities with the Innovation Center, dual credit. I've had a kid at Rotary the other day who's one of our Quest students, done all the AP classes, but she's also going to be finishing with a certificate from the Career Center in the Health Science program to go on to nursing. So, you know, we're providing as a district a lot of great opportunities for our kids and our staff. I commend my staff greatly on all the jobs that they do, trying to track down, because every kid really matters, and we're really pushing hard. And it's unfortunate, you know, these last 2 years we worked hard to get the graduation rate up. One of those years probably had one of the best in the state at 88. And we continue tracking those kids. We've had kind of a smaller cohort these last 2 years, and that's made a big difference too, because we pretty much have the same amount of kids each year that we lose, and we don't have any way to do anything about that, and we just have to do the best we can with the kids that we have, and that's what we're trying to do.
Greg actually had 2 kids at Rotary the other day. One of them had some issues at Brooklyn Casey High School and made the decision herself to go to Willow Gray. She was the Rotary Student of the Month. She'll count against BC's graduation rate, but she stood there in a military uniform in a GED program and spoke as eloquent as any kid I've ever heard in 40 years of being in education. And there is no doubt she will be highly successful. And again, that's another option that these guys have for their kids that work out what's best. She didn't have good attendance at BC High School. She didn't have good behavior at BC High School, but she is flourishing at Willow Gray, and she will flourish in life. But she will be a kid in his denominator and a 0 in his numerator. And that, again, I can't argue with that. I can't say that that's not the best thing for the kids, it does to the overall number.
I'd like to say this too. When I started as a principal, it was grad rate. It then became 4-year and 5-year grad rate. And now it's 4-year grad rate, one option only. And that's wrong. It's not right for kids. There are other options for young people that will help them to succeed, but we're being measured on a 4-year timeline and one graduation option, which is a traditional high school program. That's not right for kids. That's not right for every kid. So you can make decisions about what's best for kids, not necessarily what's best for your report card. Grad rate's important. But if you can keep your records well, track them well, have good credit recovery, get them come to school, you got a chance.
And we've talked about the things that these guys have talked about from the very onset, and this board's heard me say 96% teacher attendance and 96% student attendance since I came in here, and there's reason behind that madness, because below 95% would be equivalent to 10 days absence, and under the law, a kid loses credit for 10 days absence. In addition to that, the prime instructional rate is the amount of time that you have the kids and the teacher in the same room at the same time. So if the teacher's out or the kids are out, the prime instructional time goes down. And, you know, when you drop down to 85%, that's like leaving at lunch on Friday. So attendance is important. Positive behavior. Andrew talked about positive behavior and what they're doing. The majority of our report card points at every level, and a big opportunity for graduation is that we get our kids through the end of course test. If we don't get them through there the first time, they're apt to be somebody that we're going to not graduate on time. So, you know, our overall emphasis on reading, writing, and mathematics, I don't think we can overemphasize that as a district. And I don't think we've got to look at the points where they spread out and legitimately figure out how many points can we assume we're going to be able to get out of 25, 35, whatever column it is. And with the fact that we have a dashboard on Power School, that makes it a whole lot better for their clerical kind of folks and guidance folks in keeping up with these kids. But that's an explanation of how the graduation rate works. That's maybe more than you want to know. It's a picture of our district. I'll be more glad to answer any questions about our graduation rate, states figuring, whatever else that the board might have.
You know, first and foremost, I'd like to thank our two principals. I mean, you got a BC principal there, and airport code, airport principal, BC code. And I like to get but I would like to commend both y'all, and really like to commend our elementary principals and middle school principals, because I just realized recently, I hired a guy from Orangeburg that was homeless, and I didn't realize at the time. And he was walking to work. And so I need him up here in Columbia, so I moved him to Columbia. But for homeless people, they have no credit. Most of them have no license, so they can't stay nowhere. I can't find them an apartment, but I can find them a motel. You see, I got him at Master's Inn, and just recently, he's been there for the last 4 months. There's 3 school buses, like he said, picking up at Knight's Inn, which was closed down. There's 2 buses picking up at Master's Inn. Them kids there every morning with no parents waiting on them. And every time I want to empty my pockets and just feed them, because when they see you coming, they come and see if they gain food. But that's what we have in our community. I work all over the Midlands and central part of South Carolina. We work in Orangeburg, Gilbert, Batesburg. There's no motels like that in them areas for them to live in. So they come into Lexington too. I know we have hundreds of kids in motels that are jumping, because they once kicked out of Master's Inn, now they're at Motel 6. Across the street, some went up toward the Masters. In our community, and I commend all y'all for trying to track them, because it amazes me the school buses that are in these, not many other cities, and there's no school buses going in motels. Most of the cities don't have motels of our caliber in Lexington too. So I commend y'all. I know it's a hard job, and it's gonna be a constant problem for our district because it's a community problem. It's not really a district problem. We have a community problem because we have the cheapest living, and that's why they're coming here. I talked to a lot of them that are in there that are homeless, and they come in because it's cheap living. They can stay there for $250 a week, and that covers their power bill, water bill, and everything. So $1,000 a month is what they're paying to stay in these motels. And that's cheaper than trying to find an apartment. So I commend y'all because I see what y'all into. Because it's opened my eyes for the last 6 months seeing what these people are living in, these kids. So thank y'all.
First of all, we don't do enough to celebrate, so the first thing I'm gonna do is give y'all a really strong compliment. I really appreciate the SAT rates recently. I was explaining to someone that, you know, we have a high school somewhere around the area that might have scored an excellent, but we got 100 points lower than we were on the SAT. And then I was explaining to this friend of mine.
Can we guess who that might be?
No guessing. But then I was explaining to this friend of mine at the table that if I wanted to have a really high SAT score, I could probably even make it 300 or 400 points, whatever you want to say, probably not that dramatic, but a lot higher by saying, okay, only the U.S. History AP kids can take the SAT this year. But what was most impressive to me is I don't just look at what you scored, both the high schools and our district average. What I look is the percentage of kids that you got taking it. And what I'm seeing is that you encouraged more and more and more kids to take it. So that told me that we're actually preparing our kids to know we can make one into the 2- and 4-year programs at a really high level and a high number of those children. So not only am I glad, because I know it's easy to make a high school if you only let a few kids take it, but you actually increase the number taking it. So I very much compliment you on that.
That was both schools.
It was.
We have 51% of our kids with this.
That's huge. And that's a big boost. So to me, number one, because I'm giving you actually the same question I just asked him a while ago. Number one, I know one thing we can do better, and Dawn does a great job, and she's done a marvelous job since she's gotten here. But whatever we have to do, social media-wise, internet, I mean, that's where we sometimes get killed, honestly, is on Facebook. And so that's on everybody in this room. Everybody in this room, most of you, except Dr. James, has Facebook accounts.
Well, are you bragging on me, or is that the problem?
So we need, and I need to, actually had an administrator call me the other day and go, well, I think we just posted something, or Dawn only posted something about the SAT rate. Shame on me, I didn't go right in and click, stop everything I was doing that month and share it to all of my friends. And I'm gonna go find it and do it tonight. But everybody in this room, we need to be doing that because we need to be telling all of our stories better. So the minute you see a Lex2 positive thing, we all need to be sharing that out. So we tell our message. So that's one thing I know I can do to help you. The next thing I'm gonna ask is what I asked him. What can we as a board be doing for you in terms of resources? We hear sometimes about class sizes and things. What do you need to help you be able to get the grad rate where it needs to be and do those things we need to do?
I think we've been discussing, this, James met with us numerous times, and we're gonna have to get creative because I don't see this stopping, because this population of students coming was very transient because of the lower cost of living, that this affordable housing, in our district. We're gonna have to come up with some creative solutions to try to deal with some of these students and try to meet their needs beyond what we already have. Not at liberty right now to talk about some of those things we talked about, but I think coming up in the future, just kind of have an open mind about that things are changing, and that we've got to probably look at some new programs and some new initiatives that we may need to be putting in to help us meet this population of students' needs. And graduation rate and all that has a lot to do with it, but we might be able to get creative with how we enroll these students, still providing services to them, but possibly not getting them on our rolls until we get them acclimated to a point where we can move them forward.
I think it's going to be important for the board to contact legislators, our senators, representatives, that we push this idea. Why did somebody have the brilliant idea to say, no, it only is going to count for your graduation rate?
and GED account.
Why did they take it? Yeah. And then what was the reasoning for taking it now? Because it's valuable.
And the sad thing is it devalues what a lot of kids are doing, and it devalues what this board has done. This board has put an inordinate amount of time and money in our adult ed program. And like Greg said, it's probably the most awarded adult ed program for a mid-sized program in the state of South Carolina. And I've seen most every board member here either teary or close to it when you hear those kids in the state of South Carolina just devalue what they do. Mr. Brown, Greg was saying he wasn't ready to tell you, but I will. One of the things that I think that this board's got to think in terms of, we've got to look at early start, and I don't mean early start like most people think of it, like you're going to start at 7 o'clock. I mean like July, when we're starting to get kids that are coming in here because we've got kids that either don't speak English or they're behind. So if we can get them some initial credit early on before everybody else starts, that's like summer school free coming into that. That's one of the things that we talk about. When we start looking at our courses that have an end of course exam, and what we know is Algebra 1 is the most failed course in the United States. And a kid that fails it in the 9th grade and takes it again, if they fail it twice, odds are we won't graduate them at all if we even keep it. So part of what we've got to look at is, can we put our very best teachers with our most needy kids? And I think that's exactly what we've got to do, is putting the best people where you need them and get out of the mindset of 1965. I've done my time. I get to teach the small class for brilliant kids, but put people in classrooms where kids need help. I think that class size for EOC courses has got to be lower. And I think we've got to look at the sequential setup for mathematics. There's no correlation between taking Algebra 1 and geometry and then doing well in Algebra 2. So why are we taking 9th graders who are transitioning from a middle school environment, throwing them into the high school with lots of stuff going on? We're testing them in lots of different ways, and we give them English and we test them in the course, and then we give them algebra when most of them haven't learned to do math with just numbers, and then we throw in letters. So if we look at doing geometry at the 9th grade and then testing courses in 10th grade, we've given them another year to mature, and we've given, so what we've talked about, the principals, Dixon, Frida, Don, Marty, Angela, Jim, all of us that have been in classrooms and schools is looking at that 9GR. What are we doing that puts a roadblock in front of a kid? And how do we remove that? So in this district, we don't have the ability to award initial credit. We have credit recovery and grade points. So if a kid has been in class and failed the class, they can catch up, and that's a good thing. Most of y'all know Cynthia, and you know that she's doing some work in Spartanburg. There's high school there that they've got kids. She says the kid the least failed time a kid has failed Algebra 1 in that class is 2. They've got a kid that's failed Algebra 1 4 times, and he's sitting in Algebra 1. If there's anything more ridiculous than that, I don't know what it is, when you could set that kid in credit recovery and catch them up and not frustrate them. If they hadn't passed Algebra 4 times, they probably ain't gonna pass it in 5. But we don't offer initial credit. So if Greg gets the 15-year-old from Guatemala who has never been in school, is in a wheelchair and doesn't speak English, she checks a lot of boxes to be able to get one unit before school actually starts. It's huge, but that's a different idea for this district. So I would tell you, as superintendent, what they need is an open mind and figure out how are we going to get as many kids as we can with this. And then the other side of it is, I think we have to remember that we're a reflection of our community, and when they truly are doing all they can do, then we need to brag about that. And at some point in time, if, we aren't doing what we're supposed to do, then we'll deal with the consequences of that too. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at, and we'll be glad to take any advice. There's a lot of people who's been in education a long time, so if you can figure out how we can save a ninth grader and make ninth grade a little less traumatic and kids do better academically, that's a big help.
I'll give y'all my ideas.
I'll take it.
But, he and I did have a good talk about this, but I see a couple things that I think that our board could and possibly should look at doing to actually help you. And I like some of the things that you're saying, Dr. James, definitely. But for instance, summer school. I'd like to see us look at expanding or offering more of a summer school program. I know we can't get them at the back end, maybe and count them as graduates, but if they fail, after 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, let's look at expanding our summer school. Let's don't just let only the kids who can afford to go to summer school, because quite frankly, those aren't the kids who are not graduating, it's the kids who can't afford to go there. So even if we have to offer a free summer school, I know that's out there, whatever, that's something I would like to see is what would that cost us as a budget item to do, because we do free summer programs for kids in elementary schools when they're not successful to get them caught up to 3rd grade reading level and everything else. But when we get to high school, we just say, you flunked algebra, so what, or whatever. And I think we need to look at possibly looking at expanding our summer school program. We do need to get out of your way on credit recovery. I know Grab Point Lab sometimes takes beatings around here, but the bottom line is I remember stories of, teachers sitting in a classroom hours before graduation, waiting on the child to try to pass and take one last test, tears streaming down their face, throw the kid in the car, running over there to back to the Coliseum back then, and they walked across the stage. Well, that was a success story. And, so we need to use those programs like that we have. And then, I know that nobody likes to talk about discipline either, but the bottom line is I'm seeing on the worksheet we handed out 88 expulsions. That's going to put those kids behind for that year. So whether we, look at our discipline policy, because we have a lot of just zero tolerance, you're out, and see you later. And I'm not saying there aren't some offenses that warrant that, but a lot of our schools are doing a lot more. We have a great New Bridge Academy, and I love the name. They're giving a new bridge to a new future. But we need to expand that new bridge to some of these other behavioral issues that we're having, so that if they can't succeed over here, we're not just giving them, okay, you can take 1 credit if you're expelled, but you can actually go over here and earn 4 credits that you could earn over here at DC or airport. Because to me, that's a number that this board can control, because we're the ones expelling the kids. So, I'd like just to look at some of those things. We obviously don't want to leave a bunch of kids who would be dangers in your school, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't write up kids. If you need to get them out of your environment, let's do that, but let's look at alternative ways we can do it. I know that, for instance, a neighboring school district, every time a kid gets a drug offense over there, they're not just expelled for the year. They got caught with a drug offense, they're going to go over here to whatever their alternative school is, and they're walking out with that year's credits. And then they may or may not get to go back to their home school, but they're not just letting a kid lose a year for things like that. So that's just some things that I think as a district and a school board, those are policy type issues that perhaps we can look at, and maybe we can do our part to help you. We can't control, Kevin, what's going into the hotels, and there's something, the 15-year-old in the wheelchair. Some of those we can never control. But we can do a better job controlling the things that we can, and I feel like we need to, as a board, be progressive and innovative in some of our policy areas.
Well, I heard the board when we first started talking about this, and 2 Saturdays ago, spent a bunch of time doing this, and Don's kind of like a grounding rod, and one of his statements was exactly yours, Mr. Brown. He said, you ain't ever gonna fix it as long as you expel an 88 kid. The bottom line is, we don't want bad behavior. Hopefully we've got principals out there. Most all our principals are focusing on positive behavior, not being punitive about, oh yeah, I just love disciplining a child because I love disciplining a child, but changing behavior before it ever gets bad. But If you expel those children, I can tell you, they lose the whole year. And if you expel a child for a gun, which is mandatory by law, that's 2 years, because the law says 365 days from the point in time when they're expelled. So if you catch a kid today, they can't come back until next October 17th. And by that time, they've missed too many days to get credit. So there's some things that we can still control. There's some things that this board can't control. There's some things that their principals can't control. But I do think we're looking at some things with a different light. And the idea of starting kids that need help in July and getting a unit of credit before they get in there, changing some course sequencing, doing some initial credit, summer school, if you will, looking at credit recovery and what does that look like, because if anything says you need credit recovery, simply being in Mr. Eisenhower's former school up there is, it's pretty obvious that kids sitting in algebra 1, 3, and 4 times is not doing any good. So if y'all got any questions, I'll answer them, or these guys can answer them, or this cabinet has met about this so much that everybody here can answer any questions you've got, I'm sure.
I don't have a question, well, I say a question, but listening to all the good responses here, and I appreciate you, all the principals, all the folks presenting tonight. But there's a lot of really good, valuable information here, and it's something I would hope that we would use, I say we, the board, would use as an opportunity to bring principals in, whoever would be necessary for us as a board to sit and have dialogue in a different setting than we're in now, to hear from our principals, from our staff, where our needs are as far as moving forward. It sounds like to me, and I said it sounds like, we've got some really, really good opportunities here that we're going to move forward with. But as far as engaging in more dialogue, more conversation, to create that opportunity sooner than later for us to be able to sit down across the table from one another and listen to these people, listen to your staff, and listen to our principals, and who would be, and what their comments would be to us, that we could move forward and better plot the coming weeks and months in this process. The other, I guess another question I have, when we have, if our district, if we have an indifference, and what I heard, it maybe not, maybe in a challenging way, but if we disagree with the finding, or I say the findings in the report, I know you said we went back and we refigured this, and the percentage should be so-and-so, but if we disagree, what is the recourse? How do we?
Well, Mr. Summers, there isn't one. As a matter of fact, Greg's fighting that now. We've got 2 issues. We've got 6 kids that the 2 principals, Dixon, Morgan, Dr. Bingham, there's a whole bunch of us, Don and Jim, those folks we're meeting, we found Greg had 6 kids, got some documentation on it, sent it, and their response was the one disclosed. There are 2 different places that you can look at graduation rate, and one of them at the State Department, BC's graduation rate is 70, what, Greg, is higher than?
77.9.
77.9, what they reported out to the newspaper, 75.5. So the short answer to your question is nothing. I mean, we've called about all that, but it's falling on deaf ears. But I do think this, and we kind of said this tongue in cheek the other day. I don't know, they think I get a little nuts sometimes, but we've talked about putting out our own report card as to what the actual fact is. We're not looking for an excuse, and I'm not at all embarrassed about what work our high schools have done, because you can't have 51% of your kids scoring above the national average on the SAT. You can't increase the scholarship dollars in 5 years 1.5 times. And all those little green pens that I love so much, we're going to all the major universities in the Southeast, and something good, not high. Graduation rate in Lexington is 76.3 the way it's calculated. But there are kids sitting in BC High School and Airport High School that sat there today and will sit there in the morning that will graduate at the end of this year that didn't count in that cohort. There'll be a 5-year graduate, and it could be life happens. It may be that they missed too many days, and we don't know. They may have lived in one of those places Kevin talked about. We've had kids, Greg had kids 2 years ago, their house burned down and all the children in the household except one child at his school. Life happens to kids. Now, I will tell you as superintendent of those 2 schools, I'd love to see it above the state average. I love the fact that the state says it's going to be 90% 2035. But I would tell you 65 kids right here made a difference in the graduation rate between being what the state newspaper says is the lowest in the Midlands and what would have been above the national average. But I believe we've done the right thing for the kids there, and I think the kids that are sitting at BC and Airport right now will graduate, and that diploma will be just as valuable in the long run as if they had gotten it last June. Long answer, Mr. Summers, to a short question, but I think our folks are trying to do a good job for kids.
Any other questions?
I heard that you all are tracking monthly, trying to keep up with these.
We know where every single kid coming up is. Right now, we're tracking them down. I got 43 students, which is less than this past year, and 20 of them are immigrant students who we don't know where they're at. So we're hoping to track them. The majority of them probably have gone back to their home countries. But when a student enrolls, they may be with us for that year, but then we don't know what happens over the summer, and then they just don't show up the next year. And they, we go out, go to where they were living, and they're not there anymore, and just, so they've either gone to work, or, I got Mr. Hastings, he's one of my besties as well. He's calling different, agencies, different families to see if we get documentation from a family that says, yeah, they went back, and they are documenting that. So we're working on that right now.
And one thing we're doing differently, last year was my registrar's first year, and honestly, she did an exceptional job getting 76.8 because we started around 72. She was tracking people down and getting records, and we had some record challenges. But one of the things we're doing differently is when a student leaves us, when they leave us, we track down with them as quickly as we can. So we close the book on it. We don't wait. We don't wait till that cohort graduate year. We get them now as best we can.
Any other questions? James, can you apply the concept that you're talking about with high school and getting this credit recovery? I know we've been searching in the elementary schools for how to deal with the ESOL population and the lack of, when they come here, they can't speak English. Is there, and I know the State Department won't let us sort of take them aside to teach them English, but as a summer school program, would they allow us to do that?
Well, we aren't certain. One of the things that sometimes will make Dr. Brooks cringe when I won't get right to the edge of what the rule is, but one of the things that we've talked about is being able to put in a remedial reading program in both the high schools during the course of the day, and maybe something like that in summer school. And that remedial reading program would be geared, of course, we would let anybody in that felt like they needed language skills, but it would certainly be geared to kids who didn't have command of the English language, and that's one of those things that...
But now that's high school level.
That's high school.
I'm saying at the elementary level. If we got a bunch of elementary kids that can't speak English.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm looking right back there, and Jennifer's saying, yes, we can, and sticking her finger up. So.
And we do. We've got a program for our elementary schools and for high school as well.
We already have programs that they are teaching the kids that don't speak English. They come in during the summer and they learn to speak English.
Yes, sir. We're working on the curriculum for exactly what that's going to look like moving forward, but we have had that, and this year it actually partnered with our Read to Succeed summer camp, and then our getting ready for kindergarten program as well. Yes, sir. Runs through June and into the beginning of July.
Is that all grade levels, or is it just?
For the ESOL students, primarily the focus has been 3rd through 5th up to this point.
If you approached a program like we've approached Oasis, I2 Tech, Quest, I don't see what the state, how they can possibly turn that down for a program for ESOL students. They've got to learn it just from what I've been waiting for somebody to address in here, and some principals were given opportunities to bring it out. We have special help for ESOL for English. We have ESOL help for, not ESOL, we have special help for math and for English. But those classes for the extra help in the RTIs, they're filled up with non-speaking or non-communicating students, so much that English-speaking students that are deficient in that area can't get into those classes because they're filled right here in this district. That makes no sense, that we're depriving a sector of kids the special help that they really qualify for, but they can't get into those classes in those areas because those classrooms are filled.
And Ms. Kessler, you're absolutely right. We've got to be able to do something. If you look at that, that's 12.2% of our population if you go back to Mr. Bingham's point of elementary through high school. And then you add in 17% special ed, that's a lot of kids that need a lot of extra help.
And that means that the other kids that need extra help, just regular kids that we've had since forever, are being deprived.
Well, the thing about it is, I think that it's caused a lot of conversation with us.
It's time to stop the conversation in this. We've been talking about it forever.
We have, and what I'm saying is when we start talking about granting initial credit, and when we start talking about early classes in the summer, and when we start talking about RTI at the school level where we're doing remediation courses there, we're moving in the right direction, and we'll take as much help from this board as we get. I mean, you spend 30 years in public education.
Yeah, no, believe it or not, I've got enough energy to go back. But you want to do away with discipline, you can't do away with discipline.
Nothing to do away with
the
it.
teachers now are complaining because demons are torn up and things are, and I would like to give you a scenario of a math teacher in our district sitting in his desk doing nothing while the kids are dancing and singing the aisles, and I have the video and I can't share it.
I wasn't saying doing away with discipline. I was saying let's look at how we handle it with the expulsion rate and possibly using our New Bridge Academy better. I wasn't saying do away with discipline. I was very clear about that. You know?
We've got major discipline issues in our district, and we've got to deal with those. If we can deal with those and turn those kids around, maybe they can get on board and they won't be coming back to us as referrals.
That would be a good question to put out there. And what can the district do to better support these schools in the discipline? What is needed? No, but I mean, there is a need.
Bridge. Do we need to reduce the size of their classrooms?
Well, I think a lot of that, and both my principals, it's kind of like, my principals have gone from, I sure am glad you brought me here and let me tell them what I need to. Why did you stick me up here? But one of the things that I would say to you, Ms. Kessler, and you know from having been in the classroom, when you don't have well-prepared lessons and things that interest kids, that typically turns into an issue, and that's one of the things that we're talking about, is the fact that end-of-course testing courses have to be the classes that have the smallest number, rather than having high numbers in Algebra 1 with average kids or kids who are not math friendly.
Dr. James, I'm going to interrupt you. They need to sit down. They
Y'all say, no, we'll get shot at together. No, I didn't leave y'all. You just
Well, you can only stand that long before you face.
But those are the kinds of things that we've got to do, because those are the kids that whenever you can, and we've got a teacher right there that sees kids that are high functioning kids and kids that aren't. When you've got a lot of kids that don't do very well, don't understand the concept, you've got to have a smaller population if we're going to expect teachers to do well. If you got kids that are brilliant mathematicians, you can just about unlock the door and let them in, they're going to fly. So I think we've got to look at how we do business, and the principals have been open to that. And I think the teachers did a real good job. In fact, they came up with a hybrid schedule. We've got kids that have opportunities to get credit recovery now.
And I might add, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that we've done this school year in all of our schools, elementary through high school, is we've built in intervention time so that we can try and address every kid's individual needs. Because you're right, and the school report card shows that bottom 20% counts, but every kid counts. And so what we're really focusing on across schools this year is the instruction, MTSS, those kind of things. But are we giving good core instruction to begin with? Then are we monitoring it? And then principals will tell you their teachers are a little bit stressed right now because Dixon has been asking about, show me some proof that we're changing instruction and that we're doing something with kids to try and make sure they're learning. So we're trying to address exactly what you're talking about.
But I have to go back to Ms. Kessler's question, because, and I understand everything as much as a non-educator can, but what Ms. Kessler is asking and what nobody is answering is, I mean, do we need more teachers at the schools? Because you've got classes that we need to reduce, and if you have, like she said, if a quarter of the class can't be taught because 3/4 of it are having trouble learning, do you need to divide that class in half? Is that what you're asking?
It is, but man, we need every teacher that's at that school drawing a salary based on being a teacher. We need them in a classroom teaching, not playing in the halls. We need them teaching
and I think
productively.
I think to address what we really need, which is very hard for us to find, are people that speak Spanish that can come in and help us with the communication with our families. Because like Greg and they talked about, it's the communication, getting the kids to school, being able to get parents to understand exactly what it is we need those kids to do. It's those kind of people that we really need that will help our students and our kids. One of my concerns, Ms. Kessler, is it's hard for kids to learn English if they're not around English-speaking kids. And so language is hard to learn. It takes 5 years. And so it's just like you think about an infant. They hear it, and so they start babbling, those kind of things. Then they get to where they're understanding it. Same thing even if you're 17 years old and you're coming in. It's that same process. And when we're talking about English 1 and Algebra 1, you're talking about academic vocabulary that they don't understand on top of just regular vocabulary. So it's a real challenge for us. But honestly, having people that can help us with that communication back and forth with the families, I think is something that would really help us. And it's just hard to find those people to help with the behavior piece. Y'all were kind enough to give us 3 positions for our school-based mental health folks. We've hired 2 of those. And so they have been in schools already. Lisa and Diane and I met with them this morning, actually. And they have already been out in schools working with teachers to try and help them help kids to identify what their problems are and to meet with their families. Because a lot of times when they're coming to school, with behavior problems and mental health issues, it comes from the home to begin with. And so we're trying also to meet their needs there in the home so that they come better prepared to school. So it's a wide range of
If
issues.
these children cannot comprehend the English language and communicate and converse in it and understand what the word means, what good does it do to sit those children in a math class or in another class when they can't, when they are struggling so there? I just think and then I think we've got parents that could help out too, because you've got a lot of Spanish-speaking parents who converse well in English and in Spanish. I think maybe we need to pull some of those people in,
Right.
and at least confront them to see if they would be
And I
willing
think
to
you're
help.
right, and I think we do the same thing with special needs kids, quite honestly. When we sit them to make them take a test that we know did well, I mean, so. I understand exactly what you're saying.
But we
I
keep
don't
putting
know exactly
it
what-
off and putting it off and putting it off, because this has been a problem for a number of years now, and I can't help but think that affects this report card.
I think one thing we've got to come to grips with is what is our expectation with regard to the report card? We have the student population we have. And there's nothing in education we can do to change that student population. That student population is what it is. It's a high percentage of ESOL, it's a high percentage of special ed, and very high special ed need kids. I mean, we can't change that. So it's always going to be negative. The entire report card system is basically, it's designed to show you what your community population looks like. It does not necessarily get to the education that's going on in the schools whatsoever. I mean, it doesn't do anything for if you just have a low population. It's basically identifying that area as you don't want to be there. And that's really what the report card is doing.
That's why we have to take them where they are and bring them up.
Well, we do, but what's our expectation for that? Are we, if we don't get excellent in this or that, is that our expectation? Well, we expect these schools to be excellent. Because if it is, we may have too high of an expectation for what we're going to have given our current student population.
But
Those
we're
are
not the
things
only
that-
district in this nation who deals with this issue. So we should kind of maybe looking at some of what districts are doing, maybe not in South Carolina, because maybe we're the highest in South Carolina. But what are they doing in Texas? What are they doing in Texas? What are they doing in some of the border states? What are they doing? I mean, you know, National Hispanic Council is one of the NSBA groups that one of the chairs sits on my board. And by the way, they were amazed at how many Spanish-speaking students we had in our elementary school that day we visited. And one of the guys actually spoke Spanish and said that he tried to speak to the child in Spanish, and the child just started cringing and acting like he didn't know that was what he was really doing because he was scared. Because I guess he had also been taught that if an adult comes to you with that language, they might be about to take you or something. So there's all kind of hosts of issues we're dealing with. But there's got to be like national resources or other schools who are having some successes with it. And we know it's our issue, then I think it's our duty, and it's what we're elected to do, is it's incumbent upon us to let's figure it out and figure out what are they doing. You know, you're right. We have been debating this issue 15 years now because we started out saying let's have a separate school. I mean, we've looked at everything. I think Dr. James said just a mix deal. We've been looking at this for years. But there's got to be some
communicate
answers.
with our community. We're going to have to do a better job with that because, boy, we're taking the heat big time. And it's hard to defend because you don't have, for one thing, I don't know if any of you all were forward to schools, but I wasn't. This is the first time we're really, and I'm thinking, I can't defend what I don't know and have information on, so I have to have it to be able to explain it to them why we're in the predicament that we're in. So, since I'm confronted with that everywhere I go, and I'm out every day, we have to do, as a district, we have to get this information, and all these children take home papers, they need to take this home, and so that the parents begin to understand why these scores are this way.
Yeah, we have a perception issue that we just spent $225 million in new facilities.
Yes.
And that somehow translates to, well, that means the scores are gonna be excellent because you got brand new buildings. And we've got to educate the public that the two have nothing to do with each other. They really don't.
So how do we do that?
Communicate.
I mean, I know, I have my
Well,
own
and that's the
ideas.
problem.
I'm
Most
asking-
people don't want to spend the time to look at these numbers
understand.
and understand what these numbers mean. All they care about is, well, what was your graduation rate? Oh, it's the lowest in the middle.
But getting the information, I'm talking about getting the information out into our community, I think that's what Ms. Kessler was talking about, and things that we've talked about before, but as far as engaging the community, our stakeholders.
We need to tell them that our kids are doing okay. It's just the system, it's the way the numbers are put together. Explain a few things. I don't think that anybody wants to sit down and read a novel on this, but I do think it can be presented in a simplified fashion where they will understand and feel a little bit better about their community schools.
And we did talk about it last year. I think Dr. James, y'all did it last year, didn't
We
you?
did.
Dawn, y'all pulled together some really like nice
We
little
put a
four-page
report to
thing.
the people thing
So
out there.
maybe you laughed on tongue in cheek, Dr. James, saying we need to be on the report card, but maybe we did. It's not really agenda. Say, hey, grade us on this, or talk about those SAT scores, talk
And
about.
whilst many of them may not understand this, but that wouldn't beat you guys. If they were interested enough, they might ask questions about this. Because once you understand it, once we went through it tonight, it's pretty simple what it is.
I'll tell you this, if I'm a non-economically disadvantaged student, and that's the people that really have these questions a lot of times. You show them that one column of statistics, right there tells you what our kids do, that our high flyers are better than the state average.
That SAT scores and scholarships.
That's what we need to tell. That's the
Let's
story.
look at the
we need.
rate of kids going to further education, higher education. That's also increasing, isn't it?
It is.
So, I mean,
And more high flyers. Mr. Morton quite flippantly talked about how
flip on.
going to Wofford has become commonplace. Knowing good well that was a sacrilege, but there are a good number of BC kids going there.
Also, I think I heard you tell me, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. If a kid goes to a charter school, he's at that charter school for 3.5 years, then he transfers to BC and don't graduate, he shows up as a zero in our denominator, even though some other charter school who convinced them to play sports there.
That is correct.
Basically,
Tell them to leave if they're senior.
That's exactly right, and
they don't have to account for it.
No,
When they leave, it just comes off their score.
correct. Well, no, they aren't held to the same standards, Ms. Cuthbert, and I.
Oh, they have to track them. They don't have to track them.
That's what he said.
There's some folks who would argue that they don't even have to teach them. We got kids. Brooke and Casey got a child that Dixon had to call the State Department about dual credit coursework and the numbers that they sent to Brooke and Casey from another charter type school. The State Department had never assigned or approved those courses as dual credit, and they were transferred to Brooke and Casey. So the same standards don't apply. It's apples to pomegranates.
But they're tracked as their students, aren't they? I asked the State Department person that question, and it told me yes. They don't have to. Nobody tells the truth.
It's quite different.
All right, are we ready to move on? So
Yes, sir, I'm I told you all I know.
All right, let's move on to our monthly financial report.
So the first report is the revenue summary as of the end of September.
It wasn't missing.
we were waiting on numbers to come in from the county. That's why you didn't have the financial reports in your packets. They usually come in around the 15th or 16th. I just want to make sure we have up-to-date information for you. Any questions? Next report will be the monthly expenditure analysis. On both reports, you'll see we're tracking very similar to our numbers from last year. You have no questions on that one. The next report you have in your packet is people activity funds. You know, they're maintaining about the same as they are month over month, so I think that's a good thing. We don't see any major swings in the total, so I think that I'm pleased with where the schools are with that. And our last report would be our capital projects commitments. We are still earning about $50,000 a month in interest on our referendum funds, so that's, I think, pretty good. We're continuing to increase our interest pot, leaving $3.6 million uncommitted. Any questions on any of our reports?
Okay, thank you. Without objection, the monthly expenditure reports will stand approved and presented. Move to construction update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. James, we have in your packet the construction information that we have that's most current as of a week and a half or so ago. I will say to you that we had final inspections at Airport High School today on 2 of the enclosed breezeways, and we passed inspection, so Mr. Donald's going to be able to use those 2 connecting hallways now that will more just cover breezeways. And we did that for the safety of that campus and those students. One of the hallways that we didn't do a final inspection because we're still waiting on some doors to come in that are 2-hour rated doors. So those will be in hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll have that final part of that finished up and do a final inspection on that. Traffic flow will be much better for our students in that school. You have to answer any questions you might have.
For wood, you've got those HVACs going in. Last month we were told that they were purchased by the maintenance department. Who do we purchase those from, please?
It actually depends upon the manufacturer. Those were Carrier units. We purchased them from Carrier themselves.
Out of where?
Carrier, I mean, there's a Carrier of Columbia that sells.
Is that where you got it, Columbia? Carrier from Columbia?
I have to go back and find out. Yeah, I contacted the local Carrier office and they sent me the quote and everything. So they shipped out of Mexico. They're manufactured in Mexico.
Thank you.
And you want to tell them what you told me today about the other plans that you have there? The additional units.
Well, those additional units are north side, but yeah. So we swapped out the 2 20-ton, 25-ton down there at Seawick, and then we had about $85,000 last year for new units at north side. We purchased 2 of those, installed them. We have extra money left over, so we're purchasing 3 more units, and we'll have that whole side of that school upgraded this year. So we did it in-house. We saved us a lot of money. And those are Train. We purchased those from Train of Columbia. So that's. Thank you.
So in essence, we're trying to save money, and we're able to make the dollars go further. So not only has it been able to address the air conditioning units, heating and air units at Wood, he's now going to be able to also address some at Northside.
Another question. Walter Street is still pending council approval? Is there any new
Bill
updates?
Penny, all we're waiting on is a hearing. We've got to get a hearing, we just are on the docket, and there are only 2 judges, and there's only so much non-jury. It's coming.
I think it's important for us to start looking at funds to as soon as we have that road, look at paving it.
You're going to have CPI funds in the next few years that will be able to do a lot of things like that.
I was thinking maybe more, sooner than that, if possible. Just as
HVAC units or pavement?
No, right, and it might not be possible, but if there is a way, it was in bad condition before all the construction, and now we have a beautiful Fulmer and a lot of new things at the airport, and then the road that's in between is kind of patchwork with, potholes and things, so.
Well, some of those are still on our punch list too, so some of those will still be patched. But I hear what you're saying.
I think it would make it look like a true finished project if we.
Every year at this time, we start looking at how much money did we spend in CPIL. And we try to overestimate how much it's going to over budget in most cases, so we don't go over budget. So we will be able to collect some monies there, and we will redistribute some of those things in the coming months.
This is not on report, but in the same line, we're talking about when you go across Water Road, when we were first talking about this a couple of years ago, and even last year, we were talking about that you're going to develop a nice pathway from Fulmer over to Airport in a nice green area. Well, I don't really see that. Has it been done and taken care of, or is that to come?
It's a money thing. I mean, we're still, it's still on our list, but it's something that we're still going to have to create some dollars to do. We're looking to build a sidewalk. One of the things that Mr. Kugler does well is kind of keeps me on task, and one of the things he does poorly is keeps me on task, because he has pointed out that going basically across the field like we're doing now, that maybe if we create that as our path, it'll have to be 88. So you got to look at a lot of ramps and things like that. So we have to look at all of that stuff, and that's all get approved through OSF. But right now, the funding is just not there. We'll get there.
All right. Executive session.
Mr. Chair, fine. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Trustees make a closed session for the following: consideration of personnel, consideration of discussion of practical matters, and discussion of social matters.
All those in favor say aye.
Just a little, just about that is what you have.